Hi. Last week I was contacted by a fellow named Tyrone, and he has a long tube chime. It's not a NuTone, it's an Edwards. So this video is for Tyrone because we got to help out the people with the Edwards chimes because, you know, they don't have a NuTone chime, so we got to help them out. Anyway, he's got an Edwards chime that has tubes that are very much like these tubes here. Some long tube chimes, especially the earlier ones, they have solid ends at the top, and then there's a little hole in the solid end that the cord comes through, and that's what that tube is hung by. And in the case of Tyrone's tubes, he's got several of them where the cords have broken and the tubes probably fell down, and he needs to replace them, and he wasn't exactly sure how to do that. And I told him after talking with him that I would make him a video to show him how, because it's really not as hard as you might think, but it's easier if you watch someone else do it. What we're going to do is we're going to restring these three brass tubes. These are tubes from my 1936 NuTone Series 1 chime that you might have saw the rebuild video of. It's the one with the mechanical clockwork inside of it, and my friend Marv, the clock guy, helped us with the clockwork mechanism. These tubes came with hanging cord that's not original. This is most likely a piece of, it looks like a piece of kitchen, like butcher's string that they tie meat up and stuff like that with. And it's not bad, it's pretty thick, and it's probably pretty strong, but it's not really right, and it's kind of a larger diameter than I think it should be. So we're going to restring all three of these tubes today. You're going to need some supplies to do this with. Starting over here, you're going to need a clamp of some kind. This is just a regular squeeze clamp. You're going to need a dowel, and we'll get to the dowels in a minute. We have an assortment of different diameter dowels here that we keep at the shop all the time. You're going to need some super glue. The thin kind, not the gel kind, is best. You're going to need some floral wire. This is Floral Wire. You can buy this at your local crafts or hobby store. It actually says, I don't know where I got this from, it actually says Floral Wire Green on the label, and I've had this a long time. This cost $1.99. This came from Richard's Craft Supply, because it says Richard's. That was a local craft store that's gone out of business. So you can probably find this at Michael's or some hobby store or something like that. It's just thin green wire. It's perfect for this. You're going to need some type of waxed cord, and I have two different kinds here that I have at the shop. This is 1mm cotton cord threaded. It's Mandala Crafts premium quality waxed cord, and this spool contains 109 yards or less because we've used some. And then this is another kind that I have. It's basically the same idea. This is waxed cord. It's Boru, made from cotton, high and lightly coated with wax for easy weaving. This is 91 meters, 100 yards, also 1mm. I prefer this kind to this kind because this kind tends to knot easier, and the knots don't want to come loose while you're knotting it the second time. You can also, I bought this online, but you can find this at your local crafts or hobby store. Also, you're going to need a pair of scissors, a pair of needle nose pliers perhaps, a little pair of wire cutters, a screwdriver, a couple blocks of wood, and all of that. So let me clear some of this away, and then we'll go over some of the details of things to consider when you're doing this, and then we'll get to it. So one of the primary considerations when you do this is how large is the hoop of string or cord going to be that the tube is going to hang on. The distance between the top of the tube and the hanger, whichever type you have, this distance right here is critical because it determines where the tube hangs in relationship to the plunger that's going to hit it. Of course, if it's too long, the plunger will miss the tube altogether, and if it's too high, it may not strike it at the right point, and of course you want all 3 or 4 tubes to be the same length so they hang properly. Ideally on a NuTone tube you want to have the plunger strike the tube somewhere between the top edge of the tube and no more down than perhaps 3/8. So you're about 3/16 down from the top of the tube is where you want it. If you have at least one intact tube, you should, and it seems to be the right length, you should make it the same length. If all of your tubes are missing or have broken cords, then you're going to have to trial fit them to see what the right length should be and then go accordingly. The length of the hanging cord loop is easiest to express when you consider what the diameter of it will be. This is one of the ones I took out of one of the NuTone tubes. You need to know what the diameter of the loop is, and the easiest way to determine that is this is where your dowels come into play. We have a variety of different size dowels here. I think we have 3/8, 3/8, ½ inch, 5/8, and 3/4, and these suit all different sizes of loops. And I know for a fact, because I've done many of them, that most NuTone chimes that have cord hangers like this use a 3/4 inch diameter loop. And if you take this and roll it over the end of the dowel, not always as easy as it sounds, you will end up with if you growl at it, it's always easier. Like that. Nice and snug. Fits around a 3/4 inch dowel pretty perfectly. So that's the size of hanger loop that we're going to make for our 3 NuTone brass tubes. It would be nice if that would focus. There you go, 3/4 of an inch. So let me show you how you do this to make it easy. So we're going to take our 3/4 inch dowel and we're going to take our clamp and we're going to clamp the dowel to the edge of the workbench to hold it in place, because this is easier if you have both hands available to tie the cord. And then I have about a 12-inch piece of the waxed cord that I showed you earlier. And there is a fair amount of waste when you do this, but that's just the nature of it, because you have to have enough to be able to tie the ends. And what you do is you take the cord, you wrap it around the dowel, and you tie a knot. And you try to pull it reasonably tight on the first one, because then you're going to need to tie a second one, and you want it to be pretty tight. If it's just a little loose, that's okay. You've got enough margin for error on this that it's going to be okay. Now there's 2 knots, so it's tied pretty tightly, but the question is, how big should the knot be? Well, that depends entirely on how big the hole in the top of the tube is that you're going to pull it through. And in the case of NuTone tubes, you're going to need to tie it at least 2 more times to make the knot bigger so it doesn't pull through the hole. If need be, you can always tie it 1 or 2 more times to make the knot even bigger, because what you don't want to have happen is have it be just marginally too small, and then over time, as the tube vibrates every time the chime is rung, eventually the knot wiggles through the hole and the tube falls and gets bent. So we don't want to do that. So there's our loop tied around our 3/4 inch dowel with 4 knots in the end for a nice large knot. The next step is where your super glue comes in. You don't want the knot to ever come apart, and the easiest way to do this is you take your super glue and you put a couple little drops on the knot like this and like that, and it will soak itself into the cord, and when it dries the knot will never come apart. I have taken hanger cords off original NuTone tubes from the 30s and early 40s, and when you take it and you look at the knot, you'll be able to see that they were glued with some kind of glue also. I don't think they had super glue in those days, but they were glued with something to make sure they didn't come apart. And then all you have to do is take the loop off the end of the dowel and set it aside and let the glue dry. Now, while your knots are drying, Now is when we're going to use our floral wire. Now, so let's say, for instance, that your tube, your longest tube might be 48 inches long. You're going to need a piece of floral wire that's a little bit longer than that. You're going to need 50 or so inches. So unwind a whole bunch of it, making sure that it's long enough that you can push it down through the tube and it'll come out the other end and you still have enough to handle it all. So that should be more than plenty. So go ahead and use your wire cutters and snip it off the roll. Okay, so here's a tip. This is where the wood blocks come in. So as you hopefully can kind of see, since you've unwound the wire from the little spool here, it's all kind of kinky and bent and kind of difficult to deal with here, and that's not really what we want. We want it to be nice and straight and even. So what you do is you take your wooden block like this and you put the wire, the long piece of the wire, on the far side away from you. You put one block on top of the other block and you pull the wire through. And you can always take it and wrap it, the end of it, around a screwdriver to give yourself a little more something to hold on to. So the wire goes on top of the bottom block, you put the top block on top of it, and you pull the wire through while you're pushing down on the block. And that will even it out and take all the kinks out of it, so now you have a nice sort of kink-free piece of wire. The little part that you wrapped around the screwdriver you can just clip off because it doesn't really matter. And now we have our long piece of wire. So let's go ahead and get our first brass tube, and we'll go ahead and I'm going to show Tyrone how you put the hoop in the tube. Alright, so what you do is you take the end of the wire that you're going to put down through the hole in the top of the tube right here, and you bend it over and you make a hook, and you want the hook to be about 3/4 of an inch here, bent, and it needs to be, of course, bent over and be small enough that it will fit through the hole. So that's where you can take your needle nose pliers and you can squeeze the end of it closed just a little bit, not all the way, like that. So it will fit down through the hole in the tube. So we're going to push it all the way down until it comes out the other end, like that. And here's our hook coming out the bottom end of the brass tube. And then you take one of your pieces of cord that you tied and glued, and you want to snip off the extra ends. It's kind of hard to see. So you want to snip off the ends that are left over from when you tied it. Don't snip them off right at the knot. Leave about 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch so it won't be just a little nub of a knot. And then take your hoop and put it through the hook that you made on the wire, and this is where you use your needle nose pliers again. You need to squeeze the hook closed so the hoop of cord doesn't come off. So it's like this, and then you pull the wire and pull the wire and pull the wire until it comes up to the hook, and then you pull the hoop through. Just like that. So our wire came out. There's our wire. And there's our new cord hoop right there, all ready to be hung on a hanger rod on our NuTone chime. And that's how simple it is. It doesn't make any difference whether you're doing this for a NuTone chime or you're doing it for an Edwards chime like Tyrone has. It just depends on the critical thing is it depends on the length of the hoop, and if you have an example, you follow that. If you don't, then you're going to have to just play around with it to come up with the right length and then tie them all and thread them through, and that's it. That's all there is to it. Nice and easy. This type of cord is very similar to what was used originally. It's probably made out of more synthetic materials and natural materials if it's from the 30s or 40s or maybe even the 50s, but it's very long lasting and it should not ever really break. And there you have it, our restrung NuTone brass tubes, ready to go to last another 80 years or so, I would think. I hope you found this video to be interesting and perhaps helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube because that always helps. If you like our videos and find them interesting, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell or on the wheel in the banner, put in your email address, and every time we post a new video, you'll get an email notification letting you know. That's all for today. I hope this helps you out, Tyrone. Good luck with your Edwards chime. See you on the next video.